What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. Today, we are joined by Adam Deakin, the host for Business from the Bass Boat here on the Serious Angler Network. It is quite a pleasure to have you because we are going to be talking something completely different in two realms of the world, but there's one common denominator, and that is clear water. So I'm pretty excited about this, dude.
Dude, me too. I don't know what it is. I think it is growing up like out west and fishing clearwater fisheries, but I feel so much more comfortable in a clearwater situation. Uh, and that's just me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will go into the mud and go flipping and throw a square bill and get after it in Oklahoma. But like, man, I feel good about being able to see fish, being able to just have fish see my bait from far away. Something about clear water, dude. I just love it.
Is it safe to say home is where the heart is when it comes to clear water?
That is fair to say.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So so difference in geography, if everybody doesn't know for the new listeners, Adam is out west, Colorado, like that four corners atmosphere, a lot of deep desert, clear lakes. And then I am up here in the Northeast in New York where we have glacier lakes that are big natural, no reservoirs, hundreds of feet deep. But I think the biggest difference between our lakes is the fact that I have grass
Yep.
and you might have like
Little.
stumps and just a ton of rock.
Yep. And then I mean we have grass too. Like I mean, you look at like in I'm talking about the West in general here, especially the Southwest deserty style lakes. There are grass there. Like Havasu has a great grass population. It's different though. It doesn't seem to be as thick as like I think of in my grass fishing experience is like on a Rayburn in
Yeah.
Texas. It gets really nice hydrilla, thick, nasty stuff that's just loads big bass. But there is, and they're almost like different species of grass that doesn't get nearly as dense, but there are situations where you can go rip a trap so grass grows big fish, dude. We see it time
Yeah.
and time again.
Is it more like cabbagey type grass, like stringy grass out
Yes,
there?
it's for sure
Yeah.
stringier than like a
Yeah.
thick hydrilla. I mean, you'll have
Or
mats.
milfoil or coontail up here in the Northeast.
Yeah, and what's interesting about where I live too in Colorado, sometimes we'll go east and whatever reason, Nebraska, dude, has these lakes that are smaller that have, I mean, it is like fishing Florida. I don't know what it is, but they get milfoiled up. I mean, or like fishing up north, they get nasty, matted, and it is just a blast. But anyways, yeah, the desert lakes, it's a thinner grass, less mat situations, but those fish still set up super shallow, could be deep, but there's something about the clear water, man. I love seeing fish.
Yeah, it's there's nothing like slow rolling a double willow spinner bait, right? Like, and when we say slow rolling, we're throwing it on like an 8-to-1 or a 7-to-2 with 15-pound test and like a moderate fast retrieve, which is kind of slow for a willow blade, but also you see a giant smallmouth come from like 200 feet away and just smoke it. And there's just nothing better than that. And it's kind of surreal because you'll get like that overcast day, right? And you got like the silver gold blade tandem. It's just reflecting all this light, and all of a sudden it's like it
See
goes
it from a
black.
mile away.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
black. You're like, oh, there he is.
I think I'm gonna take a hot overall take on clear water. Um, you and maybe this is why you see like high level tournament elite series guys and these guys that become specialists in a flipping or a dirty water situation. I'm gonna say it right now. There's more baits that apply in clear water. You can get away with doing so many more things. Whereas when it's muddy, you have to be throwing something that's going to make noise in some manner, whether it's a big spinner bait having vibration, whether that be um, a square bill that's knocking around and banging off
Yeah,
stuff, whether you're flipping a jig that's dark. I mean, there's so like some of these clear water fisheries, I feel like you can do anything. You can go
sure.
really bright to really finesse. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that like when you get into muddy water, you have two colors, black and blue, or
Uh-huh.
some variation of black, red, black, blue, or white and
Yep.
chartreuse. So
Yep.
like and it's complete opposites of the spectrum, but white shows up so well in dirty water, but guess where else white plays really well?
Incredibly well.
Super clear water.
I don't get it, man, but I love it.
And a big thing too, like you might think bright is bad when it comes to clear water, especially with smallmouth. It doesn't matter. Chartreuse, and I mean, I'm going to give all the credit here to Frank Scalish on BTL, and I learned something because we're like, why do smallmouth eat chartreuse so well in gin clear water? And I think he cited somewhere where they did like scientific research on it, and they found smallmouth see chartreuse as a pale white. So all it does is it turns it into a more realistic shad pattern because it's two-tone, so the light refracts off it differently in the water, and it almost looks more natural to a smallmouth than just straight white.
Wow.
And I was like, that makes so much sense because on one of our Finger Lakes, I got on like a kind of like a false shad spawn deal. It's where the alewives kind of push up shallow for no reason in the summer.
Yep.
And
so that happens on Lake McConaughey here in Nebraska. They'll just push up.
And you're just like, what? Like, why? But they're not doing anything. The smallies are just
rush them,
exploding on them. But you can't get bit on all white. But as soon as you go to white and chartreuse, they crush it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like, what the freaking heck? Like, this makes no sense, but I'm gonna roll with it because I just caught 70 bass today. So, like,
dang, dude. Yeah. Okay, complete tangent here, but like that. What I've always been. Okay, smallmouth, I like throwing a walking bait a lot. I like throwing a popper. Like I like those two situations, and they are both extremely effective. Both can be the difference maker. For whatever reason, on those alewife lakes where there's big bait, big 6-7 inch alewives, even situations when I think of like way out west where you see smallmouth spitting up baby striper, where they're eating big baby striper in the Colorado River chain system. A Whopper Plopper, something that is just massive coming over their head. Dude, I don't know what it is, but those smallmouth get so mad and explode on that thing. And I think of normally as a Whopper Plopper as a largemouth bait, but I have seen some.
It's like a depth charge. Like, have you ever seen the World War II depth charge videos where they're doing like training and they're just dropping them off the back of like cruisers?
No, but I know
yeah, it just explodes.
Bowling ball, dude.
Yeah, like there's like a 3-day window every year in Buffalo that the last couple of years I've missed, but I found it 5 years ago pre-fishing, like bedding smallies in like 3 foot of water, but the water was a little off. So I was burning like the 110 size Whopper Plopper as fast as I can because I just wanted them to show themselves so I could waypoint it without getting on top of them. And I kid you not, I think I caught like 24.5 pounds that day pre-fishing because I'm burning a Whopper Plopper just to get them to show themselves, and they would miss it and chase it down and eat it like 3 feet from the boat as it would come across their bed.
That's my dude. And I like throwing the big plopper, like the 130 size.
Yeah.
Or the Berkeley. But dude, that's my favorite part about it. And you know how smallmouth are, just have such bad aim, but it's like whoom, and you see him jump completely out of the water, wham, and you see him jump again, and finally, like, you're like, oh, I got him that time. Like, and it's at the boat, of course. You're like, oh, gosh.
Yeah, they would just absolutely smoke it. So, like, before we get too far into the rabbit hole, I want to know what your Whopper Plopper setup is because I want to see if we can throw identical.
Interesting. Yeah. So again, I rarely ever throw the small one. So that's the hard part for me is I'm throwing a big one almost all the time. I think that in a clear water situation, especially, they seem to just eat it. And the big one for me, I'm throwing it on. Actually, it's a custom rod from a friend, but it's a 711. It was made for throwing swim baits, kind of like a light, almost like an A-rig and lighter glide bait rod.
Yeah.
And so it is got a pretty moderate action to it, but it's got a good backbone. I would consider it like a heavy 711, the moderate action.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of flex in it. I like the 711 because I can absolutely bomb it way out there. And that's what I'm normally doing when I'm throwing a Whopper Plopper. I'm pulling like I'm trying to think of someone like a Chris Lane or a Yeah, it was Chris Lane on Toledo Bend, just like covering water, making super long casts and just going. And that's what I'm doing when I'm doing something like that. So I like having the ability to throw a really, really long cast. And I'm either doing it on 50-pound braid or I'm doing it on like a 17-pound mono. And it just is, if I get too excited sometimes when it's a top water situation, I backlash that big bait on braid and I get so annoyed with it. So I don't know. I haven't quite, I used to only throw mono on it. And then I went to only throwing braid on it. And then this last year, I was in a situation where there was just fish busting all around. I was getting way too excited to just zip that thing out there and that big rod would just and lock up on me with that thing.
Oh, ow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not fun. So I'm similar. Like I don't throw it on that great giant of a rod, but I'll throw it on like a 7.6,
I
like
think that's the
meat,
perfect thing. Seven
like
and a half. Yeah.
like a medium heavy, but it has to be parabolic because it's got those
Mhm.
trebles. So it has to be a little bit softer in the mid, but I want it an extra fast tip on it. So it has to be a
Okay.
very specific rod to launch.
Yeah.
And I'm actually interested in because, Elf Angler has the clutch that can do like 500 different things with it. Like Bailey likes throwing big spinner baits on it with
Yeah.
20-pound test. I'm
Mhm.
like, that might be the perfect Whopper Plopper rod. So I'm going to mess around with that
That
when
sounds
that
like it.
bite gets going. But I'm on like a 7-to-1 gear ratio. But where
Yep.
I'm different is
I'm cranking it too.
because I'm throwing it for smallmouth over
Mhm.
gin clear water and just fishing it as fast as I can. My line is barely on the water. I actually throw like 20-pound fluoro.
Really? So you don't even
Yeah,
need necessarily to have it on a
because
mono
I
ring.
I always have the rod tip up because
Yep.
when I eat it, I can just sweep
Yep.
because you
Yep.
don't really need to hit them with the boom, right? So that
Yep.
line is barely in the water as it's chugging with that long rod.
Yep.
And with smallmouth, you hardly ever need to pause. It's almost better if you like speed up for a half a second and then slow back down.
Yeah. Dude,
So
exactly. And I'm in the same way. Like I keep the rod tip up because it's instant. You don't need to
yeah.
crack them and waste that difference in time. You just sweep right into them. So,
So it sounds like that would be the general consensus. One of our top baits for Clearwater is probably the Whopper Plopper.
dude, I think I would just categorize it for me anyway. Top water in general, dude.
Yeah,
Like clear water, especially smallmouth, but largemouth too. And I'm talking when I'm thinking through clear water, I'm thinking like clear. Like we're talking maybe 12-foot, 15-foot visibility and up, sometimes
yeah,
20-foot visibility, sometimes
yeah.
25-foot visibility. Like I'm talking like when it is clear, clear, that is that is they can see a top water, a big spook, a popper from a long ways away.
Sorry I'm making so much noise here, but I'm just grabbing a couple different like top water choices that I thoroughly enjoy throwing when it comes to like walking baits. And
Mhm.
I showed you these offline. Like people might get mad at this one because I have one, but it's a Jackal bow stick. It's a spook type bait,
That's
but
nasty.
it is. You can never beat just a bone super spook, the
Yep.
saltwater series. I gotta change the hooks on it. I haven't done it yet
Yep.
because stock hooks are trash, but this baby casts a mile and smallies can't stand it. But my two favorite top
Okay.
water walking baits is the 115 gunfish and like a ghost minnow. When it's
Mm-hmm.
bright, sunny, slick, calm, ghost minnow, you can't beat it.
Ghostman is an awesome color from Lucky Craft.
But if it's like as we're talking offline here, we should have saved it for the show. If you get that
Mhm.
perfect day, and the average tournament angler will know what we're talking about here is you have like sun cloud mix, the light variable wind, not like blowing 15, but maybe like a 7 to 10. And you come in with like a chartreuse shad type, like vixen style
Mhm.
bait. It's almost
Mhm.
unbeatable for giant largemouth and smallmouth. They just can't resist it. You could throw it all freaking day long.
I think that's a big misconception too, is that there are times when you can throw it all day
Yeah.
long.
Yeah. And I mean, if you, depending on what side of the lake you're on with the sun, if you find a shade line, they're going to eat top water. Like
Mhm.
it could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You have shade, they'll eat it.
Mhm. Dude, yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. And um, I have a hard time in a top water situation for whatever reason. I am pretty strict on ripping a white one, man. Like a
Yeah.
bone, a chartreuse shad, like you just showed. even in a sunny situation, I think so much of the time, and talking to the guys at Cast, when both you and I are mutual friends with, those guys, like, it's all about silhouette. Like that
Yeah,
fish is just looking at something going over their head. And it color at some point doesn't matter as much.
yeah,
And I'm excited to mess around with the black and some of these other
yeah.
things. I love throwing a black frog. But anyways, like a white top water, even when it's sunny, works. Ooh, that's nice.
Black low popper. This thing has caught so many dang fish on it. It is ridiculous, and it's just a knockoff popper, like no name. Like you can tell by the lip how many docks I bounced it
Mhm.
off of, and yeah, that's a fun one. You
I
can
love what I
never.
love. Something I love about poppers. I don't know what it is. I don't care about. I mean, okay, there's some fancy brands out there that are really high class, but man, some of my favorite poppers are something like, I think one of them that I found at a pond when I was a kid. Found at a pond in like high school, and at put a new feathered treble hook on it, and it is money. The paint is half gone, and I don't know. I have so much confidence in that popper. Like if it's a popper situation, I'm getting bit on that thing.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if there's like a like baby bluegill around and they're popping on like grass edges and stuff. You can never beat a popper. The
Mm,
biggest thing I look for, and I don't know how it is out west where you are, if
mhm.
I wake up in the morning and I'm rolling to the lake and it's tournament, and in the summertime, you can look up at the light. There's a lot of bugs at the light and they're landing on the water. Like instantly, like I'll take off my walking bait and go to a popper there's
Interesting.
zero wind because that means the bluegill are going to be active and they're eating all those little bugs that are falling on the surface as the sunlight comes out. So a popper is going to generally fish better for me on those days. But if we have wind and there's not as many bugs around, then I'm like, I am throwing a walking bait because the fish are
Yeah.
probably going to be more active
I think that's
and
fair.
more willing to chase.
Yeah, I think that's 100% fair, and I think to me, a walking bait imitates more of like a shad,
Yeah.
cruising across the top water or getting busted on. Popper can as well, but I agree. I mean, and don't forget too. I mean, think about all the stuff down south. Even here, we'll have like hatches, man, of like a mayfly hatch or something. And you know what? There's bluegill eating those things, but guess what? There's 3 and 4 pounders also eating those little bugs. I mean,
100%.
and here too, like on some of these real deserty lakes, and then also when you start getting towards Nebraska and the other situations like dragonflies, man, there's a lake here that gets such a dragonfly bite. It is not even funny. You sit there and you get up in the heavy cover and you wait until you hear one come out of the water, and it's like you turn over and there's like a 3 or 4 pounder completely out of the water doing this, and you're like, what was he doing when I first came to this lake? And then he'd land flat back down. Like, they're chasing freaking dragonflies. And you'd stick him in the live well and they'd spit up 30 of them. And
That's
they're literally
wild.
just eating, dude. It is the coolest bite ever. And it's definitely a Western thing, but like you can go frog and you can go into those situations and just have something over their head. And if it's clear enough, go throw a popper because they're gonna smoke it.
So like that's the other misconception with poppers, right? Is like you can never go too small with a
Mhm.
popper. Like this is just their standard
Especially
Rico
smallmouth.
size.
Yeah.
Oh, and largemouth, like if they're on that bug bite, like
Mhm.
just a baby bass popper with some chrome on the belly, a chrome white belly, and like the only time you need color on the top of a popper is if there's a low light conditions and you're struggling to see it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing. It's such a visual bite.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
sometimes it's
visual.
just a suck down. I mean, it's just
Yep.
nothing, and then sometimes it's a cannonball.
That's the biggest fish. Like on walking baits, I find the biggest fish are the ones who explode it.
Mhm.
But on a popper, the biggest ones just like suck it in from like 3 feet below it and just
Same
oh
with the frog. Same with the
yep.
frog to me. My biggest and I dude, that is one of my favorite things ever. And we're just going straight into the top water section of the
Yeah.
show. It's supposed to be about clear water. All this stuff can apply. But frog fishing, man, like my biggest frog fish, the times where I've had 2 fish over 7 pounds on the frog, and both times they were just, you know what I mean? And I had to
What?
be paying attention to the frog, and it was just a suck in, and I cracked them, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like that was not like because when it's like the 3 pounder size of a frog bite, and
They come out of the water and
oh my, just hit it as hard as they absolutely can, knock the absolute crap out of it, and then those big ones, man, they just
And I almost bet it's because of proportion to size and the cover that they're coming through to eat it. Like a 3 pounder has to use so much more inertia and more momentum to bust through that weed mat to get it to where a big one just kind of like moseys its way through and it's like, oh, meal.
yeah.
And
Well, and
right
it's
back
just
down.
I think too they have so much more pressure sucking in. Like
Mm-hmm.
they can they can pull a mat out of the water, or even if it's just open water. I mean, they have so much power to suck something in when they have that big of a mouth.
It's like a Dyson vacuum.
Dude, it is. It's just wild. You just watch it disappear. like
Uh, like some of my favorite videos are the people that like throw the bait fish in the water and like the big
oh
nonstop
man.
at, and they just come out. Like you can see them coming like 10 feet away because they're just pulling so much water before
They
they
pull
engulf it.
so much water. Yeah, it's just it's so cool. Well, we'll get back into clear water techniques, but I do want to show these things are a new find of mine here lately. These cut waters.
Ooh,
They are cocktails in a can, but not like they are real cocktails. They're not just like a sparkling soda water kind of situation. But this is their margarita one. And that sucker's 12.5%. It's got all real ingredients. It's got 2 shots of tequila in it and triple sec, lime. I mean, it is I don't know. As far as a canned cocktail gets, it tastes like a regular margarita. Like if I had this over ice right now, I wouldn't tell the difference. So I don't
delicious.
know.
I'm gonna
There's
go pick some up tomorrow.
they don't sponsor us at all, but I'm just saying, check them out. And they got this cool little agave plant logo on there.
Yeah,
Anyways,
you made me want to go get some. So
that's right.
I'm gonna go get
Go get
some.
after it.
Nice. Now I'm thirsty. Thanks.
There
So,
we go.
but all right. So we've covered the entire universe of topwater at this point. What's next? Like, what is your next favorite clear water bait?
Man, for me, there's so many things that play, like we kind of talked about in the beginning, but I think I try to and have been on this mindset here lately. And this is partly just being out at Clear Lake. Clear Lake is a very pressured body of water. It's not that big. A lot of people fishing it, a lot of tournaments. And to me, the two things that I watched play are either super, super finesse and natural or big, big, big and showy. And like your typical normal sized baits seem to not do as well in
Hmm.
those kind of pressure situations. They can, don't get me wrong. But like to me, I kind of have taken that into thinking through of my clear water baits. And it's normally something that is super natural, a really natural colored Senko, a drop shot bait, a worm that is real natural colored, or it's like, man, go through a glide bait, go through a big swim bait, something visual that you can draw some strikes for. And I think there's a place in both those. But to me, that's the two main basis things in a clear water situation.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a great point. Like out west, right, with the drop shot, you have colors that are huge out there, like a morning dawn,
Dude,
or
and
like
that we're starting to see that everywhere. Like,
yeah,
but you're right. Like it is. I don't know what it is about that dang bait, but like you will get bit on it more times than not. And maybe it's the same thing like Scalish was saying with chartreuse. Maybe largemouth there see that purple pink difference and think it's perfect because the biggest fish get caught on that thing.
or like a margarita mutilator is another like incredible. Like one of my absolute favorite clear water drop shot baits is a 6-inch Robo Worm Margarita Mutilator 2, which has the chartreuse tip, and it just crushes fish. Just blows their doors off when they're on
Mhm.
that bite. It's not a bite that's always there, but I always have it ready to go because I'm not going to get a lot of bites on it. But when I do, it's a good one. Like if I'm fishing a school of fish on a grass edge and they're eating like a
Mhm.
watermelon red or a green pumpkin, when that school turns off, I'll switch to that MM2 and just let it soak there. And it's always the biggest fish. Always.
Dude, the MM2 is nasty. I'm
Yeah.
with you. That's cool that you translate that stuff. That's what's cool about this show is seeing that you guys are completely different place, and
Yeah.
that is such a tried and true color here.
Yeah, it's kind of silly to think about because like back in the day, the person who taught me how to fast fish is like green pumpkin, green pumpkin, green pumpkin, black. And I'm like, okay, which we're gonna get into the whole black thing here shortly. But
Yeah.
like once I got really invested into drop shotting for largemouth because that was like my favorite way to fish for the longest time. Just getting into tournament fishing. How can I catch as many fish doing as many different as many different scenarios as possible. And the one answer was always a drop shot. If you wanted to throw it underneath the dock with like a 1/16th ounce weight and soak it there, or you could flip grass with it on a spinning rod with a half ounce weight and go to a little bit beefier of a rod, or fish it in wide open water and catch smallmouth on it. It's so versatile. I think there was a stretch for like 5 years when I was first learning how to bass fish tournaments that I would literally show up with like 10 rods and use
Mhm.
one all day at drop shot.
Drop shot. Yeah. Gets bites, dude. The bite getter.
Yeah. And there's certain baits that work better than others. Everybody's on a flatworm craze, incredible smallmouth bait. Don't get me wrong, but there are like tried and true finesse worms that just absolutely excel for largemouth in clear water. And Robo Worm, just your standard straight tail worm, is almost impossible to beat.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Especially I love it in like a Texas rig situation if you're around a little bit of cover.
Hmm.
Another worm that comes to mind, one of my Clearwater specialties, and I feel like I'm giving a little bit of a secret out here, but the Jackal flick shake worm in a green pumpkin
Yeah,
pepper, I
that
think is what it is. It is stupid natural and it is awesome in a clear water situation, even non-clear water. I gave it on, I think, but it's a lighter green pumpkin. It's almost translucent with a little bit of black fleck in it. But man, that thing just absolutely gets bit, either wacky rigged on a drop shot, either thrown as a flick shake on a shaky head. I think we just saw Jesse Wiggins win on Lake of the
yeah,
Ozarks with that dang thing. Or I even Texas rig it on a drop shot too. All of them work.
I think that's some sneaky juice. Like, and the flick shake worm reminds me of like a Zoom finesse worm, but slender
Yeah.
and just a tad longer.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
good bait.
It is.
Good
It is a
bait.
great bet. And then even the 6/8 one instead of the 5/8 is probably what I throw most of the time. And I'll go down to the 4/8 if it's really finessey, really clear water. But the 6/8 in a little bit dirtier situations, or even just on a lake that has bigger fish, it's almost one of those kind of magnum shaky head.
Mm,
Very, very common thing right now down south. I mean, you look at a Rayburn, even on Pickwick, all these guys throwing like the magnum trick worm. Very similar. It's a stout, thick worm.
yeah,
The 6
can't
eight.
beat it. Fun. And I'll be like blatantly honest here. I've never caught a fish on a shaky head because I don't see there's a, I don't believe there's a place for it in my arsenal. I know some people love it for like ultra clear water.
Mhm.
If it's gin clear, I find a Ned rig gets more bites
Yep.
or just a standard drop shot and going to like a 4 or 6 inch leader as opposed to like a 12 to 18 inch dropper. You can fish a drop shot literally 6 inches, 4 inches above your hook and above your hook above your weight and get just as many bites.
That's yeah, dude. And that's interesting you say that. I don't throw a shaky head all that much. I
Yeah.
know how effective it is. I have done it down south because it is so effective. But I'm curious, when are you on the drop shot going to that shorter leader versus that longer leader?
Um, Usually when I will do it is on a cloudy day.
Okay, when they're
It,
closer to the bottom.
The reason why is one, they're closer to the bottom, and smallmouth and largemouth, when they're in gin clear water, are more sight feeders. But when you have less
Mhm.
light, getting down to 20 foot of water where we're catching a lot of these finesse fish, I find if I can get it closer to the bottom, they find it better. I'm not saying they won't come up and eat it
Interesting.
on a 12 or 16-inch leader, but
Sure.
the one day I accidentally tied it shorter, like complete accident. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll make the cast. And I
Yeah.
caught one, and I'm like, oh, I haven't gotten bit in like 3 hours. And they were on a
Mm.
drop shot yesterday, real high when it was sunny. But now today it's cloudy. So I went shorter. When I went shorter, I started catching them like one after another. So now if I know it's going to be cloudy, I fish a drop shot much lower to the bottom, closer to the bottom than if it was sunny.
Wow, that's some juice. I feel like I spend the majority of my time drop shotting, gosh, probably 18 inches to maybe 24 inches, like pretty good distance up off the bottom. And that's just what I do, unless I'm either throwing it really shallow around docks and I don't want to have to deal with so much leader, or I'm bed fishing
Yeah.
the shot.
Yeah. Try it.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a shot, especially on cloudy days.
Yeah, when they're just a little less active and they're laying right on the bottom, a shorter leader, you can't beat it.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I think we should talk about, Andrew, and I didn't think about this until now, clear water. I think something that comes into play outside of the technique, because I think at the end of the day, bass have a pretty small brain, and there are times when you have to really finesse down, but like, man, they'll come up and eat a big top water. They'll eat a glide bait in 25-foot visibility.
They'll chase the spinnerbait 300 feet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Spinnerbait bite in clear water is just incredible. But that's why I think I'm such a visual fisherman, that I love clear water, because I love watching them eat it, whether it's a top water or not. Like, I love watching that black smallmouth come streaking across the bay to come and get something, And I think that's why I focus more. That's why I think I'm such a good topwater fisherman. Something I focus on it because I'm watching it so closely when there's something coming. But anyways, I think we should talk about too the importance of boat positioning and being quiet, really looking in a clear water situation, because I think that a lot of that comes into play. It's almost like hunting to me, especially around the spawn, which is where we're at here and up by you right now. Is like, I'm about to go fish a spawn tournament this weekend. It is going to be very clear. 20 right now, I don't know. It's probably 20, 25-foot visibility in this desert. And it is, I mean, you have got to be sneaky.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is, like, if there is no breeze, is figuring out which way your shadow is casting to protect that from the
Huge.
fish. So that is one. But if you have wind, is always be going into the wind, because technically the fish, if they're not on beds, will face nose into the wind based on current direction, especially in a natural lake with no current. So if you sneak up on them as opposed to coming at them, you have a less of a chance of spooking them. So
I
like
like that.
if you have a main lake point, try to get on the downwind side of the point casting into the wind. You're going to get far more bites and you're going to spook far less fish, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, the other aspect to me, gosh, there's times, man, where I just am sick of dealing with the wind, and I'll go with it and be just fine. I don't know what it is. Sometimes the bank, just going down the bank with the wind, I can make even a longer cast, but that is a massive part to me. Clear water, you need to be making a really long cast. You want that fish to not know your presence. With the boat, how many times do you have a fish follow, especially smallmouth, follow a jerk bait all the way back, see the boat, turn back? That is just something to me. You need to make a really long cast. I like your thought process of the sun. Where's the sun? Where's the shade? Where's your shade casting? Especially around bed fishing when you're dealing with these super clear things. Another huge factor to me, low light conditions play a massive role in all of our lakes, especially as we get into the post spawn here. After fish have been up shallow, been pressured, and it's that time frame when it's the summer, it's getting hot. I mean, these desert lakes getting really hot. Those fish aren't that active during the day. So like, you need to make hay in the sunshine, and not actually in the sunshine, but
in the low light. Yeah.
Low light. You need to go catch him in that first hour. You need to make a good top water bite happen, a good reaction bite happen, because that first hour of the day is so important. And a big part of it to me is those fish aren't able to see everything yet, and they're willing to go strike at that reaction style bait And then later in the day, that's when I'm referring more to those really finesse techniques and having to work for them.
Have you ever found like downsizing your fluorocarbon leader on a drop shot gets more bites? Like going down to like a 4 or a 5 pound test.
Man, I'll be honest, I used to mess with that a lot, and I still feel there's a place. And it's not because I don't think the fish can see it. I think it's more of the bait looks more natural
Yeah.
with like a 6 pound or a 5 pound or a 4 pound leader. But I run my drag unless I'm in an open water smallmouth situation. I run my drag a little tighter than I think most people do for drop shotting. And the reason being is a lot of the time we have all these desert bushes and trees
Yeah.
that we're fishing. I want to get that fish out of that cover relatively quickly. My go-to almost all the time is I'm throwing 8 pound almost everywhere. I mean, almost everywhere, unless I'm really need to get heavier and it's up shallow for largemouth cover shot kind of situation. Maybe I'll go up to 10, 12.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of the time, I'm on 8 pound, and I probably should look more into that, but it just scares me because of how much cover in some of our lakes there is. And it's not like,
Don't let it scare you, bud.
yeah,
Trust me. Don't let it scare you.
don't let it scare you.
I am right there with you with like winching down and giving them the beans. And this is where I think drop shot can get like uber, like super specific, right? Like you need the perfect rod with the perfect reel, with the perfect line to the perfect fluorocarbon, like Brady line to the like. And I'm saying perfect a lot. I can't stress it enough. I have found in 12 years of fishing only 2 drop shot rods that I truly, truly like and can put my money behind. One was a 2006 gray blank Shimano Kumara, and I
Okay.
still have it to this day because I've
2006.
tried
That's awesome.
15 different drop shot rods and haven't found one close until I got the Alpha Angler spy bait rod in my hand. It
And
is
you're
literally
obsessed with that thing.
dead nuts similar to the Kamara in action,
Okay.
but 3 times as sensitive.
Wow. Dude,
And
and
now I have 3 of them.
that is awesome.
So because it can do everything, I can fish light nets on it. I can fish a light drop shot to like a 3/8 or a half-ounce drop shot. I caught tube fish on it just messing around and swim bait fish. So
Wow.
I'm like, this
Thank you
rod
for
is
the swim
perfect
bait.
for everything. But it's because I am so obsessed with rod actions. And that's getting me back to the point of that I just told you, don't be afraid of it. I will flip like sparse grass with that same rod with 6 pound gamma edge leader and literally
Wow.
reef on them with like a Robo Worm rebarb or an owner cover shot hook Texas rig and get them out. If you have a
Wow.
really good fluorocarbon that you can trust, you don't have to worry that much.
And what knot are you tying from your braid to leader?
Oh, dude, just that standard Alberto knot.
That's what I tie too.
Yeah, I'm not an
So
FG fan.
easy. It's
My
so
hands
easy and so fast.
My hands don't work good when I have 4 different, like,
I
linings
know.
going.
I've
I'm like
tried it. I'm glad we're on the same page
yeah.
here. I can't figure that thing out, dude. My goal for the off season this year was to learn 2 knots that I don't ever really tie, and that was the FG knot and just honestly a Snell knot, like a flipping knot.
Yeah.
I really don't like. I don't know if it's because I slackline maybe a little more, but I've had no issues punching on Rayburn, punching grass with just a heavy EWG and swinging on them and not needing a Snell hook to go through.
Yeah.
But my team partner started doing it this year because he was losing fish and it started working for him. Now, did it matter for me? I don't know. I would throw
Well,
some on the Snell. I would throw some on the regular heavier EWG flipping hook. And I haven't had issues, but I learned how to tie that one. That one is way easier to learn to tie than the FG knot. The FG
so
knot, I literally was like, nope,
it's funny with the Snell knot. In the steelhead world, we call it an egg loop knot. And
okay.
then in bass fishing, it's a Snell knot. So when I
That's
heard Snell
hilarious.
knot, I'm like, what the heck is this Snell knot? And then as soon as I saw like it, I'm like, oh, it's an egg loop knot. I can tie that blindfolded 19 times over.
That's
Like
funny. It's a pretty easy knot, man.
it
Like
really
it's
is. You
simple.
like
Yeah.
for the beginning listener who doesn't know, you literally just have your hook shank and the point is down. You come through the bottom, come up, make a loop, wrap it 7 times, go back through the loop, lick it down, and pull it tight. Like it's easy as can be. FG knot, you need like 19 different hold angles, and like 3 mouths,
pressure
puckering
from
with
your
your toe.
rod tip. Like it's just, yeah.
Yeah, forget about it. Give me an Alberto, 10 down, 10 up with 8-pound braid to 6-pound fluoro, and I'm
that could
dead
be a
to go.
huge factor there. Hold up, that's sneaky right there. So, what are you running on your braid size? What are you running 8-pound almost exclusively, or what?
So
Where do you?
deep water smallmouth on braid is 8-pound Daiwa J braid 8-strand times
That
8.
J braid's sweet. Yeah.
It's wicked. Second best I found is Cigar Smackdown. Like they're identical to me. They're very good for. It's a very subtle, super manageable braid. It's not like rope. It's very subtle. It's manageable. It's almost limp, right? It kind of
Yep.
reminds me slightly of Nanofill, but less ropey. Now,
Yep.
if I'm largemouth fishing in grass, I'll go to 10.
So 8 to 10. So still pretty light.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, overall from the braid, spinning rod braid spectrum. So another great braid that I have recently been screwing with is and I just ordered some on Omnia today, is the Berkeley X9, the
It's good stuff as well.
9 strand braid. I've enjoyed that. It's been good. But I have been messing around with a little bit heavier braid leader lines. I've been going like more of a 10, 12, 15. And I don't know that I really notice a difference. I think I would rather I'm starting to think through of working my way back down. The only time I like that heavier line, here's a question. This is more of a heavy cover situation, but do you throw a floating worm at all around the spawn? Like what do you call it? Like a pink worm or a,
Methylate,
there you
like
go.
flame orange. I have messed around with it some.
Mm-hmm.
I've never found to catch more fish on those certain colors, like on a floating worm, as opposed to just like slinging a Senko. So I
Yep.
just
Yep.
go standard 5-inch wacky dinger Senko, whatever the flavor is of the day. Start
Yeah.
chucking that around. It catches just as many fish in the north. It's a trick worm, if not more, in my opinion. But
Yeah. Well, and I think so. The only reason I'm like, I screwed around with like 15 or 20-pound braid, like a darker color, straight braid tying to, and that is literally from watching tournament fishing, watching Zach Burge do that in Florida, of throwing it straight braid, no leader, on a spinning rod because it's hard to throw a dang Zoom trick worm on a casting rod, weightless, throwing that thing up around heavy cover. And the only reason I like throwing a floating worm sometimes more than like a Senko is I feel like I can cover water faster with it because I almost fish like a fluke. Like I'm just constantly jerking
yeah,
it, moving it around versus like a Senko. I'm normally fishing pretty slow. But anyway, so I've been messing with these heavier braids. I don't think I have. I like more of that 8 to 10-pound range, especially in those deeper situations with drag set
yeah.
correctly. You
I'm
can
gonna
cast further.
I'm gonna blow your mind with something here, and you're not gonna believe me until you try it.
Okay.
Go to that 8-pound braid
Yep.
and then put a fluorocarbon bumper. Like, take your distance that your floating worm drops from your rod tip
Yep.
where you want to be castable. And
Okay.
then take your
Couple feet.
fluorocarbon leader and go to like a 10 or 12-pound fluorocarbon leader on that 8-pound braid.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're going to do is when you cast, that fluorocarbon leader is going to be heavier than your braid. It's going to add weight to your floating worm.
Fish it faster.
When you load and cast your rod, you're going to get further casting different because you have to think of it as like a fly fishing scenario. You're tapering your leader. So the end of your rod is basically going to be a sinking tip. So when you load that rod and launch it, your weight is going to punch forward and it's going to get you another 20, 30 feet of casting distance.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
sneaky.
Yeah. Just a little tidbit. You
Okay.
don't need a ton. It's just enough. Like we'll call it 15 to 20 inches, depending on where you like that worm when you cast. So you don't get it into your guide. You want it just at the end.
Okay.
And it's going to really help you like propel
That's the
that bait
way it's
forward.
gonna go.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's pushing weight forward.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, one other thing I wanted to bring up Clearwater, you brought up Senkos. I am a huge proponent of throwing a Senko in gin Clearwater. It just gets bites. My colors that I'm going to go to, probably my number one, and has been for a long time, when especially these Colorado River lakes, the Lake Mojave, Lake Mead, Havasu, even Powell, those kinds of situations. I like a baby bass Yamamoto Senko. It's such a natural color to me. It's not the baby bass that's like in a Berkeley that's very green, which we've seen John Cox catch tons of fish on, but it's more of a really natural little specks in it. Could be a shad, could be a bluegill,
Yeah,
could
I
be a
love
baby
that
bass.
color. It's so good.
That color is nasty to me. Really, when it comes to Senkos, I'm throwing 3 colors in Clearwater. It's going to be that green pumpkin, and then some sort of very clear Senko I've been messing with in these last couple of years and have been getting bit. So like a Yamamoto natural shad, or like literally a clear Senko with black pepper flake in it. Like almost just so natural, and something like I don't really know. And it works, man. I don't know what it is about how stinking clear it is. Or as we'll get into, black Senkos are just money as well.
Yeah. So like I fish a Senko a ton, but I'd never really wacky rig it. In gin clear water, if I have to wacky rig a Senko,
Mhm.
the number one color I always use, and I don't know why, but I like brighter, louder colors, but I need it to be
Interesting.
natural, right? So watermelon magic red flake in
Okay.
gin clear water. And I
Interesting.
am not a flake person at all. Like I want green pumpkin with this little flake in it. I
Yeah.
want
Black flake. Yeah.
straight black, like 99.9% of the time. But if
Yeah.
I'm fishing a lake that is gin clear, it is sunny, there is no wind, not a single ripple or boat wake on the water, watermelon red, watermelon magic red flake just outfishes literally everything for
Wow.
me.
So
For
watermelon red.
red, it's
So
watermelon magic with a red flake. So it's got like gold and silver flake with red.
wow. So it's pretty shiny.
Yeah, but it's very
I'm gonna have
translucent
to
at the
try
same
that.
time.
I
Yeah,
have not. Yeah, because I've always been more on the natural train, but
yeah,
that's wild to me.
yeah.
I'm gonna give that a shot.
So like, there's a couple lakes around here that I only throw watermelon red on. And then
Mhm.
there was this day where it was gin clear, sunny, no wind. And I'm like, they won't eat the watermelon red
Yeah.
for whatever reason. So I'm like, you know what? I got this stupid watermelon red magic in here because it's red with the watermelon, but it's a little bit more translucent with like silver and gold. And I
Mhm.
kid you not, I was a co-angler and we fished the same stretch of docks like 3 times that day. That second time we went through, I caught fish. My angler, my pro, like the guy running the boat didn't catch a single one. I had like
Wow.
17 pounds. We
Oh
went
my
back through
gosh.
again. I caught like a 5 and upgraded like a 2.5 I had, and he still hadn't had a bite. And I ran out and I went right back to the watermelon red. Never got another bite.
The shine, something with that flake.
And
That's
then as
wild.
soon as like I run in that situation when it's slick calm, like I'm reiterating it here, slick calm, bright blue, high pressure, no wind whatsoever, they will just decimate that watermelon red flake magic.
Wow.
Just and they won't eat anything else.
Dude, that's wild to me.
And it might be just a confidence deal, but that color, it's hard to find it. There's only a couple
Is it
shops that
is
sell
it a
it, but
Yamamoto color? Is it a
it
Yum
is.
color? Okay.
It's the Yamamoto color. So they have green pumpkin magic, green pumpkin. I don't even know if they do the green pumpkin red magic, but then they have a watermelon magic and a watermelon magic red flake.
Wow. Dude, that's
And
okay.
it's
I'm literally
that
gonna
that's a
add that
juice
to my
color.
tackle list on Omnia.
Yeah.
Dang.
I don't know if they have it at Omni or not. It's hard to find it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to get them to have that. That's wild.
It
Sneak
used to be, so
peek
the
juice.
story on it, it used to be a Dick's only color. When the Licks had
Oh,
like
and Dick,
select
yeah,
colors.
they had the select colors with the
Yeah,
Yamamoto
so
stuff.
like
Remember that.
You can buy it direct, I think, on the Yamamoto website, but now that they're owned by somebody else, I don't even know if they're really carrying it. So
Mhm.
I'm down to like 3 packs. I gotta go buy some more.
Yeah, you better go find some on
Yeah.
eBay or something too.
So
Dang, that's sneaky. Yeah, man. I mean, but that's a Senko's just a natural great presentation in a clear water situation. I think the biggest thing, long casts. I mean, a Ned rig is fantastic. Another Yamamoto bait, big in like Havasu, kind of this sneaky Western stuff. A fat Ica Yamamoto bait.
I use those.
Understand it.
I
Okay, good.
use those. Yeah.
Yeah, you can cast it just like if you're just bombing a Senko with a
Do
little
you
mud.
rig it forward or backwards? That is the question. So
I
tentacles on where you tied the hook, like the high of the hook, or tentacles down at the
tentacles
shank of the
down
hook.
and it's goofy as all get out. I
Rig
don't
it,
understand
go
it.
backwards.
Yeah?
Put the tentacles on top by the hook eye.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
got
saying
it. Okay,
backwards.
I
So it's
thought.
not like a tube jig, not
Yeah.
like where it's like
Okay.
that. It's the other way. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. And it's goofy. I don't understand it. And you stick, and it's the same thing. You stick like a nail weight in the back of that thing, and you can just like pew out in the middle of a cove, and you're
Yeah.
in like 30 feet of water. And it's like, there it goes swimming off. Bam. And it's like 4.5 pound smallmouth.
Yeah, I used to skip that bait almost exclusively on docks. And
That's
same thing, stick a
sneaky.
little nail weight in the back, and you could get it on a baitcaster because it weighs so much, so you can skip it
There's
with
so
like
much dense plastic.
15-pound test on like a 7.3 medium heavy. You
Uh-huh.
just freaking hit them with everything you have with a
Oh,
5-aught because you need a massive hook to go in it because
yeah.
they're so wide.
They are so wide. They're such a thick bait.
Oh man,
Oh,
but
I
yeah,
think that's what I love about Yamamoto plastics is it's just so heavy,
yeah.
man. Like it's just heavy and thick and they fall apart. Don't get me wrong. You got to buy a lot of them to go through fish, but like something about that thickness too. I mean, you can absolutely when it's like even in a shallow water situation where you need to winch a fish out of stuff, you can throw a weightless Senko on a medium heavy rod with 20 pound and
Mhm.
absolutely crack them. But you can still throw that thing on 20 pound, like very far, very efficiently. Even a 5 inch Senko, 6 inch Senko is also sweet. 7 inch Senko is also sweet. But anyways, like you can whip a Senko on a casting rod pretty well.
Mhm. Yeah, I won't disagree there because I almost only throw them on caster rods. So um, there's just something about it because the stupid part about a Senko, and you shouldn't even say stupid, the incredible part about a Senko is it gets not just a ton of bites, but it catches the dang biggest fish in the lake too.
Dude,
Like,
there's a guy, and I don't know. It's not Russell season.
so you have a guy too that just whips Senkos around every derby and cracks them.
Dude, oh, well, locally, absolutely. But
Yeah,
like I'm talking Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit because I watch all live fishing, right? Like
yeah.
Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit's on, NPFL's on, Bassmaster Live's on. Like I'm watching it. There's a guy, he wears like a Def Leopard, it's got an American flag, like wrapped boat in the Tackle Warehouse
Brilliant.
Pro Circuit. Dude, any grass fishery whatsoever. So they were just on, I think Pickwick. Or no, they're on Gunnersville. Okay. Like any fishery that has grass, which the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit this season is very grass heavy. He is throwing, I mean, I kid you not, Harris Chain, Potomac, anywhere where this guy, and he like top tens consistently on this, throws one bait. And it is a 6 inch Senko. It's a big stinking Senko, either weightless on a Texas rig or with like a 1/32 ounce nail weight, and he is just dragging it so slow through this grass,
There it is.
this shallow grass, and it's like a 7 pounder every time, dude. And it is just it blows me away because he's got it dialed.
Yeah.
It's just one of those he just doesn't change.
He's out there singing "Pour Some Sugar on Me" while hooking jinks on a big log.
Yes. And I think it was just when they were talking about it. JT Kenny on live was talking about his boat wrap, and they were like, I don't know. I think this guy owns his own business, and then like he was like, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do rap wise," and it's literally a Def Leppard rap, and I love it.
It's incredible, and that's the best part about the sport, right? Is there are so many different characters in our sport,
Oh,
and we all have one common bond: bass fishing.
dude, it's so cool. It is so cool. Oh man, I love it so much.
Yeah, incredible. So like, what do you say here? One last spring bait we want to mention,
Mm, let's think. Um, spring bait
or just
from
Clearwater bait in
yeah,
general.
yeah. Clearwater bait. Trying to think of like some. We've already gone through our kind of finesse.
So I'm gonna tie two into one here,
Let's
and
hear it.
I'm curious if you agree.
Yep.
So they're similar style bait, but they have two different purposes. You saw Zeldane crush them on it a couple years ago in Oklahoma, which is gonna be like the Okashira screw head
Mm-hmm.
with like the cast prodigy on it. It's actually caught me some fish this year, or spark shad is what it was designed for. Incredible. So it's
Mm-hmm.
emitting all that flash and that clear water, and it's vibrating, but it's super finessey. Or just your
Mm-hmm.
standard 80 size spy bait. Like they just catch so many fish.
So many fish, dude. And we even can get into like along those lines, like you're talking hair jigs, man.
Yeah.
Super clear water, nasty,
Yeah.
nasty bait.
Shame on me for not mentioning it. I've never caught a fish on a hair jig.
There you go. That's what we're
So
looking.
like it's not a top bait for me. I'i've tried them. I can't figure out how the heck to cast them. Like, and that's where I learned how
It
like
just feels so goofy to me. It looks so dumb, and I don't know why they eat it, but they do.
let me just slow roll this bait that I can only cast
You
like
can't
40
feel it.
feet.
It's not like a spinner bait. It's not like you're just reeling in a crappie jig, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is dumb.
And all of a sudden a 6 pound small, he just eats it for no reason.
Yeah, dude, I don't get it. I do not get it. Another thing with the Mega Bass spin head deal, whatever it is called. Why do they not
Yorkshire.
make it? Why do they not make it in anything but an eighth? Why don't they go heavier with that?
I'm assuming
Frustrates
it has something to do with like body roll,
me. Okay.
etc. But boy, what a pain in the freaking butt that thing is to
I
cast.
hate eighth. I used to be a huge eighth. Okay, hold up. Just thought of this. Just along the same lines, 2 into 1. We'll go 3 into 1. Another incredible Clearwater bait that I have stepped away from, but I'm thinking back, like how
Banjo
much
Minnow.
money I have won. Nope. How much money I have won on a stupid grub in Clearwater is
Yeah.
insane. Swimming it just like a single swimmer. The same thing as like a 2.8 or a 3.8 inch kayak or a 3.3 inch kayak. Like just slow rolling it, a stupid grub. And I used to throw that thing on an 1/8 ounce head exclusively. So it would just be sneaky and finesse. But
It
like,
was probably
like
like a
you said,
Mr. Twister grub, like green package, slimy as all can be when you pull it
you're
out,
like,
and you're like,
this thing is so dumb. Honestly, actually, do you know what it comes down to for me is uh the it's man, dude, wow, we're really going to Clearwater. Makes sense, right? Yamamoto, like West Texas Clearwater fisheries when we're talking still the bottom of the Colorado River chain. That's where like the Senko, all this stuff started coming out. But like Yamamoto grub, man,
yeah.
that's what it is for me. It's just such a I don't know, something so finesse about it.
The only grub that I have ever used or caught giant fish on is the Kalen's 5 inch lunker
Okay,
grub.
yeah, dude. The big
The
so what do you
the
do with that? You just put on a big jig head?
3/8 ounce jig head and do the sang dang thing, just crawling it over rocks.
Wild.
And Smallies used like I probably haven't thrown it in like 10 years, but literally like that was like my childhood. We would
Big
go out
Kalen's.
and cast Kalen's grub from the bank and just count rocks and crush them.
Dude, I think about that too, like walleye fishing growing up from the bank. Like same thing, throwing like a 4 inch grub and just enough to be ticking the bottom. And
Yep.
guess what? Sure enough, we'd catch a big smallmouth doing it too.
Yeah, it's so dumb. Like, and it comes back to we always overthink the simplest minded beings in the world, and that's a fish, especially a bass. They have two things that they want to do in life. They want to mate and procreate to expand the species,
Yep,
and to eat.
that's it. Wouldn't life be simpler if that's the only two things we had to do? Oh.
Yeah, it's surreal to think about. So, yeah.
But man, that went on a lot of tangents, but like absolutely Clearwater stuff. I think the biggest takeaway, really finesse them. Don't be afraid of vibrant colors. You can go through a chartreuse spinnerbait and absolutely maul smallmouth.
Or go really big.
Or go really big. And it's so much fun because you can see them. One last thing I guess I'll give away here.
Oh, love it.
Pre-fishing, practicing for a tournament. Clearwater fishing, if it's around the spawn, post or pre, they're up on the bank, they're up shallow. You don't need to fish for them. You can go through an area high on the trolling motor, and when you can see 20 feet down, even if you can only see 10 feet down,
You can see them.
You can find them, and then you have to learn how to catch them, but you don't need to worry about sticking them in practice. Go just look for them.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest thing to do is learning how to catch fish in not just highly pressured clear water, but just clear water in general.
I agree. And I think it comes back to low light, man.
Low light, boat positioning, in
long casts,
and proper presentation.
Yep. Big part of it.
Dude, an honorable mention real fast before we end.
Baby jig. Let's talk like money in Clearwater. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly, KJ or a queen jig, like
peanut jig. Yep, fantastic. Or jerkbait. Even jerkbait's in the summertime.
I had that on my list.
Yeah, and we could go on about this for 2 hours. Maybe we need to have a Clearwater episode version 2 and include Bailey on it because I'm sure he'll have some
insight.
Own individual insight because that kid can just catch fish in a freaking trickle of a puddle, not even a full puddle, but a trickle. Yeah, well, bathtub's bigger than a puddle, so he can probably catch him there. He can catch him in the shower drain, like a stand-up shower drain, where it's just
really small.
Yeah, it's just a trickle.
That's funny.
Bait's bigger than the water. So, well, man, that was fun. I appreciate you coming up with this idea for this show. Credit is complete to you on this one. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And just real quick, if you haven't already, this is for our listeners at home. If you haven't already, please give us a like button, thumbs up, subscribe, comment. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. And if you're new to the show and you ever have any questions or anything, don't be afraid to reach out. We're here for you guys. So as always, we appreciate everybody who tunes in. You guys and gals are awesome. So, but for now, I guess we will see on Monday for Business from the Bass Boat, right? What episode's coming out Monday, Adam, since we have you here?
Monday, man. We've got you coming on of all people.
You.
We got you. Andrew full fishing guide service.
Scary.
Man, about your first year on the guide biz. Quitting the corporate life, going to a year in and talking about your stories there. So that's what we're going into.
I feel bad for all the folks at home. That's 5 straight episodes if you include next week of me. That's scary.
Andy's been just going, man. Let's go.
Let's
grind it.
Let's keep going. So, well, for now, everybody, enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time here on the Serious Angler Network.